They've only been chucked out of government barely a week, and the new opposition leader, Peter Dutton, is already carping on about, the cost of government, this is terrible, Labor mismanagement, how are we going to pay for this, how are we going to pay for that?
The decisions that Labor make will drive up inflation. A ratings agency which is out there talking about our AAA rating being negatively impacted because of the amount of money that Labor's proposing to spend. That's going to be the lived experience, unfortunately, but that's what Labor do. They always spend more than what they have, which is why they tax more, and that has a dampening impact on the economy as well.
Indeed, it is a fundamental question, but this from the guys that just the reckless financial mismanagement of the coalition has left Australia with $1 trillion in debt, with the budget all over the place. It's a complete mess. It is the biggest spendathon, the highest cost of government in Australian history, the highest taxing too. It is an absolute fiscal debacle. Let's just go to an issue which is bipartisan though. When they say, the cost of the NDIS, that is looking after Australia's most disadvantaged people, it's going to blow out, they say, to $60 billion. How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for aged care? Look at the rising, spiralling cost of aged care. Look at power bills. Indeed, all these things are real things, and they are real costs that future generations will have to shoulder, as well as us right now working every day to pay for this stuff. But there's one fundamental problem that everybody is missing. It's forest for the trees stuff, and that is we have built a nation of middlemen. We've built a nation of middlemen which is raking out billions of dollars in consulting fees and advisory fees in all these critical sectors. Remember when they corporatised and privatised the power sector and they sold it off to the Chinese and Singaporeans and everybody else? The cost of power bills doubled. It had been going up at CPI before that. Suddenly it doubled, and now it's tripled right now. What was the problem there? They built a whole new suite of companies with all their finance departments, HR, PR, management, bonuses, dividends, multinational tax avoidance, all these costs. What do they do with NDIS? Instead of providing a public service for disabled people, they said, no, let's privatise it. And they've created billions of dollars in fees. Look at Job Active, the government function of providing unemployment services, which both sides of the House regard now as a failure. And who are the winners from this? The likes of American multinationals charging for looking after or not looking after Australia's jobless. Hundreds of millions of dollars going to middlemen, some of them multinationals. The wreck that the privatisation of aged care, they've had a royal commission into it. It's a disaster. A lot of elderly Australian people died during COVID as a result of the failure in privatised aged care, not public aged care. They don't even have nurse-patient ratios. This is a disaster. It's been found by a royal commission to be a disaster. And what did they do? It's the result of privatisation. It's the result of middlemen raking out profits, putting profits before people. Look at toll roads. We've sold them all to one big, gigantic, multinational toll road operator called Transurban. It's an Australian company, pays no tax. It's a trust structure. During the pandemic, they put their hand out despite raking out billions in profits over the years and paying extremely high bonuses to their executives. What did they do during the pandemic? They put their little greedy hands out for help from the public, from ordinary taxpayers who are slugged twice paying their taxes and paying tolls to Transurban, the tax dodger. Another one, home care. That's the provision of food and services to elderly Australians in their homes. We've done some work on this one. In some cases, 50% of it doesn't make it to the elderly person. It may go straight into the pockets of the middlemen, of the home care providers, the corporations. This is the problem. The cost of government is at record highs. The prevailing theory of the way that we should be running the society is neoliberalism. That is, that things are better off in private hands. And how have we got there? We've got there because bankers and lawyers that are on this privatisation gravy train have made huge money out of it and continue to make huge money out of it. So the next one on the table, of course, may be Australia Post. We know that Scott Morrison's government commissioned a report by Boston Consulting Group, another bunch of high-charging middlemen from America. The Boston Consulting Group report recommended flogging Australia Post, selling it off, floating it or privatising it for $7.2 billion. Imagine the post office in every town going to some multinational tax avoider. Would it be more efficient? No, it would not be more efficient, even though it is so inefficient right at the moment. So these are services, these are essential government services which we pay for from our taxes. This is public money. And what's happened over generations? It's just become accepted. We've just allowed it to engulf us without questioning it. What has happened is there has been a gargantuan socialising of the losses and privatising of the profits. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't made the services better. In fact, you could say that in many cases, like aged care, it's made the services worse. Without your support in the community, we would not be able to provide this service. To keep the heat on government, we've had 9 years of reckless, incompetent coalition government, and we wish Albo the best, and we hope that the new mob is better than the old. And we expect that it will be, but we're going to keep the heat on them too, and large institutions on your behalf. Thank you for your support.